Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning all. I'm Ista Maharsi from English Language Education Universitas Islam Indonesia. Are you students of English Language Education or are you novice English teachers? Are you wondering how to teach reading and writing? If your answer is yes for one of those questions, you will definitely find the following information useful. Before you teach reading and writing, there are several important principles that you need to remember. First, the nature of both reading and writing. Second, the principles of teaching and teaching stages. Third, the skills to develop reading and writing classroom instruction. Fourth, the skills to create relevant assessment of reading and writing. And fifth, the skills to apply effective classroom management. Now, let's start with the nature of reading. There are several things that you need to consider when teaching reading. The first one, you need to determine the purposes of reading. There are several purposes of reading. For example, reading to search for simple information, reading to skim quickly, reading to learn from text, reading to integrate information, reading to critique text, or reading for general comprehension. The second thing you need to remember is the components of reading. So in reading, there are lower level components such as lexical access, syntactic parsing, and semantic proposition formation. And the high level of components may include text model of comprehension, situation model of reader interpretation, and background knowledge. The third thing you need to remember before you teach reading is models of reading. There are three reading models which are very well known. That is bottom-up models, top-down models, and interactive models. Bottom-up models is that when you teach your students from word to word, sentence to sentence, and finally you will get the whole picture of the text. While the top-down models is that you start teaching your students by using the general idea of a text. The third model of reading is interactive model. This model is the combination or integration of bottom-up models and top-down models. The four things you need to remember when you teach reading is the processes required for fluent reading. For example, rapid process, a learning process, linguistic process, an efficient process, an interactive process, and a strategic process. It is also important to teach our students about reading strategies. There are many kinds of reading strategies. For example, previewing text, predicting the content of text, checking prediction, posing questions about the text, finding answers to the posed questions, connecting text to background knowledge, summarizing information, making inferences, guessing the meaning, checking comprehension, identifying difficulties, repairing faulty comprehension, critiquing the authors, and critiquing the text. Now let's go on to how to prepare to teach reading and writing. Before teaching our students how to teach reading and writing, I would like to tell you about the general mistakes in teaching practices. This is very important so that our students can teach properly. And those of the mistakes are inconsistency of teaching materials, and then unsmooth movement from one stage to another, unprepared teaching media, lack of rewards, unclear instructions, involving students in all stages, and build good rapport with our students. And what we also need to teach our students is that there are three stages in reading and writing. The first one is pre, and then while, and then post. So when we teach reading to our students, we need to consider about the activities that we need to give in pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading activities. In pre-reading activities, we can give our students warm-up activities or ice breaking. This ice breaking may include short but fun and exciting activities so that the students can get motivation before they start learning. In warm-up, we need to consider that this is the very beginning stage in teaching. And because this is the beginning, we don't need to give our students difficult tasks. The tasks should be short, concise, and fun so that the students are ready to go on to start their learning in the next stage.
Next, we have several activities that we as a teacher can use for warming up session for teaching reading. The first is crossword puzzles. These games allow students to enrich their vocabulary because it may contain some difficult words in text. The second one is chained word. The rule for this game is that you should use the last letter of the given word to make a new word. The third is picture puzzles. An important thing you should note if you want to use picture puzzles in your warming up activities is that you have to choose a related picture with the topic of the text. The fourth is hangman. Students need to guess what vocabulary based on the topic as you can see from the screen, and you can try it either in online or offline platforms. And last but not least is that word categories. This game allows students to categorize each of vocabulary with the same categorization. For example, jump for verb, helpful for adjective, slowly for adverb, and etc.
In while reading activities, this may include the presentation of the topic of that day, and it can be followed later by post reading activities that can include practice and production. In practice, we usually give our students easier or freer practice, meaning that we give students some samples of activities or exercises, and there are some guidance given in the worksheet. While in the production stage is basically freer practices. So the students can use the target language in writing, because usually when we teach reading, the products of the reading is writing.
Okay, and next is the example of a worksheet for reading. There is a text that you have to read first in order to answer the following question.
Now, let's have a closer look on warm up. The warm up activities can include introducing the topic of the day, and we should not ask our students about what they will learn. Rather, we can do the following. You can ask your students to play games of vocabularies that relates to the topic of the day, or you can use pictures or photos to elicit from students about their knowledge on the topic, or you can also use songs or video scenes to have a chit chat about the topic, or other activities that you can find by yourself that are suitable for your students. Okay, after we have the warm up activities, we have the presentation stage. In this presentation stage, we probably need to prepare PPTs or handouts that will be useful for the students to follow our explanations. Or second one, we also need whiteboard or papers, and then we can also have some other teaching materials, including the worksheets. Well, another thing that we need to remember when teaching our students is that involving students in all stages of our teaching. When teaching reading and writing, we do not explain about a text, for example, or the stages in writing, while we do not include our students. So, in all stages of teaching reading, we need to involve our students by asking them questions, asking them to give samples, for example, or response based on what we need in our instructions. And then in practice, we usually give them worksheet where we give them instructions of what the students need to do, and the examples. So instructions and examples are very important in worksheets so that our students can do the task properly as instructed. One thing that is very important is giving feedback. So, in reading, for example, we can ask students to answer some questions, some reading comprehension, for example, and then we need to give feedback. This feedback could be direct or indirect feedback. Indirect feedback, we can give our students alternative answers, or we can just simply praise our students because they have answered correctly, or indirect feedback, meaning that we suspend the right answers by, for example, asking students to have discussion with their peers. And then we can give feedback on the answers of the reading comprehension questions, for example.
You still have the same tags but for another skill. Here, you can see the same tags as previous but with writing skill. Please bear in mind that reading and writing are linked to each other, which means that if you want to write perfectly, you have to read as many as possible.
The next thing we need to consider when teaching reading or writing is classroom instructions. This classroom instructions is very important because by doing this, we give clear and appropriate instructions to our students. There are principles of direct instructions for our students in teaching reading or writing. And there are many theories about this, and some of them are from Slavin, 1994. So we can have the learning objective statement and orient students to lesson. And the second one, we can have review, prerequisites, and present new materials, and then conduct learning probes. King and Bridge also propose several direct instructions. They are gain and control attention, and then inform the learners of expected outcome, stimulate recall of relevant prerequisite capabilities, present the stimuli inherent to learning tasks, and over guidance for learning. While Hunter, 1982, suggests four direct instructions. They are objectives, review, input and modeling, and checking understanding and guided practice. So, when teaching, we need to remember that our instruction should be put short and clear so that our students can follow what they need to do in the classrooms. The last thing we need to consider in teaching reading and writing is the assessment. How to assess reading and writing. There are many things that we need to remember. The first one is text purpose, and then test level, and test construct, number of questions, time allocation, text types, text length, text complexity, task types, text method, rubrics, and scoring criteria. Okay, so hopefully this information will be useful for you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.